Hello, it is February 18th, 2025, and I just completed reading Prince of Thieves by Alexandre Dumas. And I've got a Dumas or Dumas, however you say his name, books. I've read a few of them already that were stellar, and you can imagine which ones they are, as he's got some real blockbuster books that he's put out. But this one I'm reading because I previously read a Robin Hood collection that was translated by, forget his first name, Henry Gilbert. And I have that review under my live section also. If you want to refer to that, there's a lot of information on it, not spoilers, but background on the legend of Robin Hood and whether or not he was a real person and all those things. But if you haven't read that or don't know about that, the basics you probably know is that he robbed from the rich and supposedly gave to the poor, which that part was not expressed in the Robin Hood collections that I read. This Prince of Thieves is first part of two books, the second one being Robin Hood the Outlaw, and I will be reading that next. But this one is a reimagining of the folklore or tales that compose Robin Hood, the legend, and or possibly real person, if he was a real person and if the stories were accurately representative of any real person that existed. But what was interesting about this book, and it kind of revealed it to me at the end of the book, was that it was not just rich versus poor or nobles versus town folk, but in this reimagining, it was the Saxons versus the Normans. So Anglo-Saxon people, Germanic people, came to England prior to the Normans. The Normans came with William the Conqueror, primarily from Normandy, which is in France, and that's why they were referred to as the Normans. My people originated in Flanders. They were Flemish, of course, which was half of Belgium. There was two sections of Belgium at that time, and Flanders was where my people came from. And they came with William the Conqueror because the Norman queen married one of the kings or somebody, a prince or somebody from Flanders. So that's why there was a relationship between Flanders and the Normans. So they came together to England and basically beat the crap out of the Saxons that were already there. And they brought with them a more formalized education system, construction methods, and governing that was more palatial and exquisite and big and all of those things that England ended up becoming, rather than just a bunch of farmers and, town folk that relied off the land. It became big, official, things of that nature, more elaborate education system, which kind of is what America ended up following suit when we came from England to America. That's where a lot of our proper education structures and things of that nature came, was from the Normans who invaded England, kicked the Saxons' butt, and kind of took over everything. So in this book, Alexandre Dumas expresses that Robin Hood is a Saxon. And a lot of this reads kind of like Braveheart. I'm not going to give you too many details, but in the end of this, there's a conflict because the woman that Robin Hood loves is trying to be married by a Norman noble. And that ends up with the major conflict, as you can imagine. I won't tell you the result between Robin Hood and the noble. So it got pretty exciting at the end. The beginning of the book was Robin's upbringing, his birth and his upbringing, and that he was actually of a nobility in the Saxon peoples, and he has a bigger reason for becoming this rebel, as the Normans are invading and kind of taking over villages and things of that nature. And the cast of characters that exists in the Robin Hood stories are also in this. And they have different kind of stories and roles in this book than they do in the Robin Hood legend stories. So I don't know what's to be expected in the next book, the Robin Hood the Outlaw, and if the end is anything near the ending of Robin Hood the Legend from the Robin Hood compilation that I read by Henry Gilbert, then that book ending was really, really surprising. Nothing like any of the movies or what like you would expect. Neither that book compilation or this book are very fun. You could think of him as truthfully an outlaw, and a lot of the scenes in here are quite brutal, just as in the compilation stories they were. Um, the shooting arrows and things of that sort are the basis for the goofier movies that kind of took over American culture in the 40s and 50s. But the books are not really like that. They're life and death struggles um, for honor and things of that nature. And according to this book, based on the struggles of the actual Saxon people that were in England prior to the Normans invading and taking over. So there's a little historical basis that apparently, when I Google, was Robin Hood a Saxon, it says no. But since you can't prove whether or not Robin Hood was a real person or not, you can't really make a case as to who he was in the first place. There's a lot of theories. So I don't know if there's any basis in fact to this book placing the possibility that he was a Saxon or not. But it's in this book. So it'll be interesting to see where the next half takes us. And I will be doing a review of that when I'm completed. And as always, I'll tell you, this book is 210 pages. It's translated from French, which that's kind of interesting, being that it's being purported as a Norman, which is Normandy, French conquering of England. And then the story is about him fighting with the Normans. So it was translated from French into English, and it kind of reads like Old English a little bit. It's quite verbose. The action items in this are kind of spread apart quite far. It's not a swift read, it's kind of slow, but I have a feeling that the second book is going to pick up, so we'll see. I'm not sure. There are fighting segments in this, not a lot. There's a few, but that tends to be more realistic because you're not going to be having like 50 skirmishes that everybody comes through and continues on, and like hero movies and things of that sort. You don't want to have a lot of battles, right? Because everyone you have a lesser chance of survival and things. So there's a few skirmishes. There's his origin. There's his romance story that's very difficult, and we'll have to see how that plays out in the next book, and I'll give you a review of that when I'm done with that book. And it's hard to decide how well I liked or disliked this because I don't know where it's going to go. So based on where it ends up at the second end of the other book, it'll determine how much I liked or did not like this first one. I say it's very competently written, of course, because it's Alexandre Dumas, or Dumas, however you say his name. He's clearly a great writer, and yeah, whether it's for you or not, it'd be a hard thing to say, because it's not fun per se. It's more, you can't even say it's historical, but it's a spin on something historical, perhaps, is what I would say. And that's about all I got until the next one.